I need to find information about what works best for YouTube storytelling and confessional narratives before creating this script. Now, I'll create the confessional storytelling script following all the requirements. At 62, I stopped breathing in my sleep, and when I woke up, everything I'd buried for 40 years was clawing its way out. By the time my daughter found the letters, I'd already lost her trust forever. They say you mellow with age. They say desire fades, that passion becomes a distant memory filed away with your youth. They're wrong, dead wrong. And I'm living proof that some fires never die. They just wait underground, patient, until the moment you finally let your guard down. My name is Eleanor, and I need to tell you what happened when I closed my eyes. For 40 years, I was the perfect wife. Michael and I met at 22, married at 24, had our daughter Grace by 26. We built a life that looked flawless from the outside, a colonial house in Westchester County, dinner parties every month, anniversary trips to Martha's Vineyard. I volunteered at the library. He coached Little League. We were the couple everyone envied. But here's what nobody tells you about perfect marriages. They require you to become half a person. I loved Michael. I did. But somewhere between the PTA meetings and the book clubs and the carefully managed routine of our lives, I realized I'd stopped feeling anything at all. Not happiness, not sadness. Just a flat, endless nothing that stretched out like a highway with no exits. When he touched me, I was somewhere else. When he talked, I heard sounds but no words. We'd perfected the art of coexisting without truly seeing each other. And I told myself this was maturity. This was what real love looked like after decades. I was 58 when the sleep apnea started. At first, it was just Michael nudging me awake, saying I'd stopped breathing again. Then the exhaustion set in, brutal, bone-deep fatigue that made every day feel like swimming through concrete. My doctor ordered a sleep study. They fitted me with a CPAP machine. And that's when everything changed. Subscribe now because what came next shattered everything I thought I knew about myself. The machine worked. For the first time in years, I was actually sleeping. Deep. Restorative sleep that I didn't even remember was possible. But something else happened too. I started dreaming again. Vivid, intense dreams that left me gasping when I woke up. Dreams I hadn't had since I was young. Dreams about David. David. God, I hadn't let myself think that name in 40 years. We dated before Michael when I was 21. He was everything Michael wasn't. Reckless. Passionate. Completely unpredictable. He wrote poetry. He wanted to move to San Francisco and live in a commune. He told me I was a caged bird who needed to fly. My parents hated him. My friends thought I was insane for even considering a future with someone so unstable. And when Michael proposed, steady, reliable Michael with his engineering degree and his 5-year plan, I said yes. I chose safety. I chose the life that made sense. I never looked back. Except now, 4 decades later, he was in my head every single night. At first, I tried to ignore it. They were just dreams. Everyone dreams about old flames sometimes. It didn't mean anything. But then I made a mistake that I still can't fully explain. I Googled him. My hands were shaking as I typed his name. And there he was. David Morrison, living in Portland, Oregon. Divorced, according to his Facebook profile. Still writing, he'd published 3 collections of poetry. His profile picture showed him older, grayer, but with that same intensity in his eyes that used to make my stomach flip. I stared at that photo for an hour. Then I clicked, Add Friend. I know. But here's the thing about reaching 62. You start calculating how much time you have left. You start wondering if all those safe choices were actually brave or just cowardly. You start thinking about the version of yourself you buried alive. He accepted my request within minutes. His first message was simple. Eleanor Wells. I never thought I'd see that name again. I should have closed the laptop. I should have blocked him. I should have told Michael. But instead, I wrote back, How have you been? 3 words. That's all it took to open a door I'd welded shut 40 years ago. Stay with me because you need to understand how fast this spiral happened. We messaged every day. At first, it was innocent, catching up, sharing stories about our kids, laughing about old memories. But then the messages got longer, deeper. He told me he'd never really gotten over me. that marrying me was always the thing he regretted not fighting harder for. He said he still had a photo of us tucked in an old journal. And I told him things I'd never told Michael, about feeling invisible, about the gnawing sense that I'd chosen security over actually living, about waking up one day and realizing I'd spent 40 years playing a role instead of being a person. "You're still that caged bird," he wrote. "I can hear it in every word." I cried when I read that. 42 years old in my marriage, and a man I hadn't seen since Reagan was president could see me more clearly than my own husband. The dreams intensified. Every night, I'd put on my CPAP mask. And every night, I'd fall into vivid, elaborate fantasies. Me and David on a beach. Me and David in a bookstore. Me and David in bed. Not graphic, not explicit, but intimate in a way that felt more real than anything I'd experienced in years. I started looking forward to sleep more than being awake. Michael noticed something was different. "You seem distracted," he'd say. "Are you feeling okay?" I'd lie straight to his face. Just tired, still adjusting to the machine. Meanwhile, David and I were talking for hours on video calls when Michael was at the office. I'd lock myself in our bedroom, heart racing like a teenager sneaking around, and there he'd be on my screen. That familiar crooked smile, those intense eyes, asking me about my day like every word mattered. "What would you do?" he asked one night. "If you could start over?" I didn't even hesitate. I'd choose differently. The silence after I said it was deafening. "Eleanor," he said slowly, "I'm in New York next month for a poetry reading. Come meet me." Everything inside me screamed no, but my mouth said, "Send me the details." If you're still watching, you already know I went. I told Michael I was going to visit my sister in Boston, booked a train ticket, bought a new dress, nothing inappropriate, just something that made me feel like myself instead of somebody's wife and mother. I hadn't been this nervous since my wedding day. The reading was at a small bookstore in Brooklyn. I sat in the back, watching him read his poems about loss and longing and roads not taken. His voice hadn't changed. Neither had the way he commanded a room without trying. When it ended, he found me immediately, like he'd known exactly where I'd be sitting. "You came," he said. "I came." We went to a coffee shop, then a wine bar, then we just walked through Prospect Park as the sun set, talking about everything and nothing. At some point, he took my hand, just held it. And I felt more alive than I had in 20 years. "I have a hotel room," he said finally. "Just for talking, I promise. I don't want tonight to end." I should have gone home. You know I should have gone home, but I didn't. Nothing happened. I swear nothing physical happened. We sat on his hotel bed, fully clothed, and talked until 3 a.m. We talked about who we'd been, who we'd become, who we might have been together. He read me poems he'd written about me over the years. I cried. He held me. And when he kissed me, one single soft kiss, it felt like waking up from a 40-year coma. "Leave him," David whispered. "It's not too late. We could have 10, 15, maybe 20 good years, real years. Don't die wondering what if." I wanted to say yes so badly my chest physically hurt. Instead, I ran. I made it back to Westchester by dawn, crept into bed beside Michael, and lay there shaking. The CPAP mask felt like a prison. Sleep felt like a trap. Everything I'd built my life around suddenly felt like a cage I'd constructed myself. But it wasn't over. God, I wish it had been over. Keep watching, because this is where it gets worse. David and I kept talking. I knew it was wrong. I knew every message was a betrayal. But I couldn't stop. He became my oxygen. The only time I felt real was when I was talking to him. I started planning. Actually planning. Looking at divorce lawyers online, calculating how I'd split assets with Michael, researching apartments in Portland. I was building an exit strategy from my entire life. Grace knew something was wrong. My 36-year-old daughter, who knew me better than anyone, started asking questions. "Mom, are you okay? You seem different, distant." "Just tired, honey, the sleep thing." More lies. I was drowning in lies. Then came the night I fell asleep at my desk. I'd been messaging David for hours. Michael was away at a conference. I was exhausted, emotional, probably delirious. I put my head down for just a minute. Grace had come over to drop off some clothes she'd borrowed. She had a key. She let herself in, and she found me asleep at my computer, David's messages filling the screen. Message after message about leaving Michael, about our future together, about the hotel room in Brooklyn. She read everything. When I woke up, she was standing in the doorway, my laptop in her hands, her face a mask of horror and rage. "Mom," she said, voice shaking, "what the hell is this?" My whole world stopped. I tried to explain. God, I tried. But how do you explain betraying everything your daughter thought you stood for? How do you tell her that the marriage she grew up believing was perfect has been empty for decades? How do you justify emotional infidelity to someone who idolizes her father? She wouldn't listen. She called me selfish, said I was having a pathetic midlife crisis at 62, told me I was destroying our family for a fantasy. He's not even real, Mom. He's a version of a person you knew 40 years ago. You're throwing away Dad, who has loved you and been faithful and built a whole life with you. For what? Some emails and dreams? She was right. I knew she was right. But I also knew that those emails and dreams were the only things that had made me feel alive in years. "I'm telling Dad," she said finally. "You need to tell him yourself, or I will." She gave me 24 hours. I've never felt anything like that night. The CPAP mask on my face felt like suffocation. I couldn't sleep, couldn't breathe right. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Michael's face when he'd find out. Saw my marriage ending. Saw Grace never forgiving me. But I also saw myself at 70, 80, 90, still in this house, still playing this role, never knowing what real passion felt like again. Comment below if you've ever been caught between the life you built and the life you actually want. At dawn, I made a decision. I went downstairs. Michael was making coffee, reading the paper like it was any normal Saturday. 40 years of normal Saturdays. 40 years of routine and safety and slow suffocation. "Michael," I said, "we need to talk." I told him everything. About David, about the messages, about Brooklyn, about feeling invisible for years. I didn't spare him any of it, not because I wanted to hurt him, but because I owed him the truth after 4 decades of partnership. He didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just sat there, coffee cooling in his hand, staring at me like I was a stranger. "I don't understand," he said finally. "I thought we were happy. I thought we had a good life." "We do," I said. "We did. But Michael, when's the last time you looked at me? Really looked at me? When's the last time we talked about anything real?" He was quiet for a long time. Then, "I look at you every day." "No," I said softly. "You look at the idea of me, the wife, the mother, the partner in this life we built. But the actual me, the person I am underneath all those roles, I don't think you've seen her in decades. I don't think I've let you see her." That's when he started crying. My steady, stoic husband, the man who never showed emotion, broke down at our kitchen table. "Are you leaving me?" he asked. I opened my mouth and realized I didn't know the answer. That was 3 months ago. Here's where we are now. Michael and I are in counseling. Grace isn't speaking to me. She takes her father's calls but lets mine go to voicemail. David sends messages I don't answer. The CPAP machine sits in my closet. I haven't slept properly since everything came out. Some days I think I made a terrible mistake. That I should have kept everything buried. Should have just accepted that security and stability are worth sacrificing passion for. That I'm a selfish, destructive person who nearly ruined everything for a fantasy. Other days I think I woke up just in time. That 40 years of sleepwalking through life is enough. That I deserve to feel something, even if it's just the pain of honest choices instead of the numbness of safe ones. Our therapist asks what I want. Michael asks what I want. Grace, in the one text she sent, asked what the hell I want. And the honest answer? I still don't know. But here's what I do know. I'm 62 years old. Maybe I have 20 good years left. Maybe 30 if I'm lucky. And I can't spend them pretending anymore. Whether that means fixing what's broken with Michael, or starting over alone, or something else entirely. I can't go back to who I was before I closed my eyes and everything woke up. Last week, Michael asked if I was still in love with him. I told him I didn't know if I ever was. That maybe what we had was comfort and partnership and habit dressed up as love. That maybe neither of us has been brave enough to ask the hard questions until now. He asked if I was in love with David. I told him I didn't know that either. That maybe David was just a mirror showing me who I'd stopped being. That maybe this was never about him at all. Then Michael said something that's been echoing in my head ever since. Maybe the question isn't who you love. Maybe it's whether you love yourself enough to stop settling. I don't know if we'll make it. I don't know if Grace will ever forgive me. I don't know if I'll end up alone at 65, wondering if I destroyed everything good for nothing. But I know I'm awake now. For better or worse, I'm finally, terrifyingly awake. So here's what I'm asking you, because I genuinely don't know the answer. At what point does choosing yourself stop being selfish and start being necessary? When does safety become a prison? And is it ever too late to choose passion over peace? Hit subscribe if you think I'm brave. Hit subscribe if you think I'm a fool. Either way, stay with me, because I honestly have no idea how this ends, and I'm living it in real time. Leave a comment telling me what you'd do, because right now, I'm 62 years old, fully awake for the first time in decades, and I have absolutely no idea what comes next. All I know is that when I finally put that CPAP mask back on, if I ever do, I won't be the same woman who closed her eyes 3 months ago. And I still don't know if that's the best or worst thing that ever happened to me.